Welcome everyone to the Newly podcast, where you get practical, no BS insights on how to grow yourself and grow your career. On this episode, we are talking to my friend Kristina McMenamin. She is the founder and chief explorer at askHUH. She is also the co-founder and partner at MindLevers. Welcome, Kristina. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Britta. So good to be here. Also, I just realized that my shirt matches my chair.
What?
So that's just
amazing.
almost a little awkward, but
I love it. I love it. I love it. This is awesome. Well, polka dots all the way. We love that. So why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Chrissy. You can call me Kristina, Chrissy K-Mac. And I've been on this journey over the last bunch of years. But really what I'm doing right now is sparking curiosity and aliveness. That's my mission. And the way that I do that is a few different ways, through immersive experiences, through one-on-one coaching, and through leadership development workshops. But with really the core of people getting more in touch and attuned with who they are, and so that they can lead from their most authentic selves, be their most authentic selves in this world that so desperately needs us to be more us.
Yes. Oh, I love that mission, to be your most authentic self and to lead from your most authentic self.
Yeah.
Maybe I should coach with you. Who knows? So let's continue on by telling us a little bit about your A to B story. Where did you start in your career and how did you get to where you're at?
Yeah, so I graduated with an English creative writing degree from Barnard College. It's a women's college, and had no freaking clue what to do with my life. But I'd had an internship at a PR firm. After some finagling, they made me an offer.
Oh, wow.
And so I was making like the littlest amount of money possible, living in a basement apartment in New York City with two of my best friends in the world, like having the time of my life at the worst cultural perspective place I have ever still to this day worked at. It was toxic, and I got all kinds of health issues from it, actually, and then ended up moving from that space onto an internal corporate communications role at an organization called WP Carey. It was a real estate investment company. I knew nothing about real estate. Like, I knew nothing about this space. But they took a chance on me, and I was a good writer and was able to help them with a lot of their communications. And over the next 8 years, I spent a chunk of my career there, working my way up. They sponsored me to go to business school at the time. So I took 2 years off to go to business school, came back, ended up managing a marketing team of 5 people. And not only was I responsible for the communications of the organization, but we managed investment products. Like, this is like such niche stuff that has like left my brain completely. But it's like I was responsible for the launch and the marketing of investment products to financial advisors.
Oh, wow.
Again, like what does that even mean? I don't even know anymore. And then from there, I decided to move to back to Chicago from New York to be with my now husband, who I met in business school, and worked at a startup. So I had studied entrepreneurship at Kellogg and was excited to be at like the early ground, scrappy stage of a startup. And that's what I did. I went to Paro, which was a marketplace for freelance finance professionals to businesses. And so I ran their content marketing for about 1.5 years until I took some time off and I traveled the world, did some deep personal growth work, and have been on this journey of building my own business over the last 3 to 4 years that has taken a bunch of different shapes over those 3 to 4 years. And it continues to evolve, because for me, it's not just about what does the market need. It's also like, what do I as a human want to grow and thrive? And like, how did those two things really come together in my business and in my life?
I love that you really focused in the end on, what is it and the environments, the places and spaces where I can grow and thrive. And I think that is so key to the core of our concept or our theme today, which is stop shoulding on your career. And I feel like I need to say the word should, articulate it very clearly, just in case people know I'm not saying a bad word. I swear like a sailor, so but I love this idea of not putting the word should on yourself and really sort of introducing shame and judgment into how your career is, how you navigate your career. So let's just jump in, like the shoulding. What are some common shoulds that you hear from people talking about their career, and what are shoulds that you hear from startup founders? And maybe we can talk about this in the context of what are the shoulds that you told yourself when you were in your career?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of them had to do with like, what does success look like? So success looks like a very specific number of things. And so I should be aiming for and achieving those success metrics, which is I got to have the title. I got to have the money. I should do something that's like visible. I should be going up some ladder. What ladder? Who knows? But I got to be going up some ladder.
Yeah, right? What ladder? Yeah.
Kind of all of those things that, I mean, honestly have taken a lot of time to unwind. And it's kind of interesting. Both my parents are entrepreneurs. So like, they didn't really do that themselves, but they had their own businesses. But somehow, like, I took that on to myself of like, what I saw them doing, I interpreted in that way of like, I need to be successful in these very specific ways. And now I'm like, I made up my own title. Like, I'm chief explorer, man. Like, I made up my own title because I didn't want to be like CEO or, founder. Fine, I can deal with founder. But to me, now it's like I get to choose the title that I have, and it makes me feel great. I love it. As opposed to like, should I get, am I going to be here to get the next VP role or the director role or this role or that role? It's like, I can create my own role.
Yes. You can create your own role. You can create your own career. And what are, you work a lot with founders. What do you find are the typical shoulds that they wrestle with?
Yeah, there's so there's a lot around like, who are their stakeholders, right? And what do they need to be doing to certain stakeholders? How do they need to be showing up? So, if we're on a roll of having month over month revenues increase, we should keep that streak going, even if it actually doesn't really matter. Even if it's like, we're profitable and doing fine, there's this like, we should keep it going. We shouldn't share vulnerably. We got to keep it all, close to the heart if things aren't going so great. We can't be transparent because you can't, the people in your organization need to trust you. And if you share that things aren't going so well with you or the organization, something bad is going to happen from that. So there's a lot of shoulding around how to show up. A lot of shoulding around co-founder dynamics too. Like,
interesting.
I should be a certain way with my co-founder. Instead of really looking at, how is this relationship going? Are we supporting each other's growth and emergence, or are we enabling each other and holding each other back and holding this organization back because we keep coming up against the same stuff over and over and over again, but somehow we shouldn't have the hard conversations, or we should be a certain way with each other and not actually dig into what's going on. There's a lot.
Yeah, there is a lot. I was just going to say, there's just like, I feel like there's so many things that, I know one of my common shoulds, and I'm, I sort of work in startup. I'm not a founder, but one of my common shoulds is that, we should be having X amount of growth, which kind of speaks to a little bit about what you talked about revenue, or we should have X amount of followers or X amount of whatever. And I think that's just, I think to your point, like, it really does hold back the dynamic, because if you're in the innovation space, if you're in startup, it should look different for everyone. Like, that is the norm, is that things are going to be different for every single person. And I love the emphasis on authenticity and understanding that, are you holding the dynamic back? Or are you leaving space for it to grow in the way that it's supposed to? So,
yeah. Well, and I think that piece about growth too, when we focus solely on growth metrics, which a lot of organizations do, it's often at the cost of the human element.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so like, I've seen a lot of people at a lot of startups are pulling like really long hours. They aren't seen family and friends, they're burning themselves out. At what cost?
Yeah.
And by the way, the growth, it grows and grows and grows. To what end?
Right.
What is this a mission-driven organization?
Right.
Are we trying to change the world in some day, or are we just, doing it for the sake of growth and consumerism and all of these things?
Right.
So,
Right. Well, I like that you're orienting towards, to what end? What is the purpose of that? Like how are we really understanding the end point? And to your point about, like not at the cost of your own mental health, a company is its employees, it's systems, maybe it's brick and mortar, but essentially it's its employees. And if we're burning ourselves out or burning out the people that make our mission possible, not a good idea, right?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
totally.
So and so let's take that into, a career. Like if I'm pressuring myself to grow so quickly and so at such a fast pace, or pressuring myself to put in a certain amount of hours, what would you say to somebody that feels that pressure, and how can they shift their mindset around that?
Hmm. Well, I think there's a way that when we're so oriented to these success metrics
Mhm.
of money, title, need to get to this certain place, we kind of miss out on the journey.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, I think the way that you just said growth was more of like the growth to the title, the growth to this, to the money,
Mhm.
but there's like an inherent growth that is happening
Mm.
in each of us in every single moment. And I think we kind of miss the learnings along the way. We miss the like, what felt really good? What didn't feel so good? And let me like actually take a second to evaluate and take that in, learn from it, and maybe then do something differently
Yeah,
so that maybe that same scenario won't happen again.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I think we just like miss out on the journey with all of it, first and foremost. But secondly, like we're only on this planet in these bodies once.
Mm.
And I think so many of us are so on these like freight trains steamrolling ahead to where? Again, where?
Yeah.
To more money, to power, to info. Okay, but what about like life, like on this planet? Like we're here once.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
mean, I want deep connection with the people around me. I want to experiment and adventure and try new things. I want to feel fully alive and all of the feelings. And I want to speak truth to people, have deep conversations. Like there's a way that all of our intention and focus is going to the sort of success metrics that we think we should be trying to achieve versus there's a whole other set of success metrics that involve feeling nourished and alive and whole and full and connected and part of something bigger.
Yeah. Yes. And I love the idea of feeling nourished by your career. We look
Yeah.
at work as something that is so draining, sometimes, or historically, I've looked at work as like I need to be like grinding hard, otherwise I'm not working. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, ugh. But I think, part of what you've learned and part of what I've learned, and I've learned from you particularly, is that, it's more about what are you getting out of your career that you're taking home, that's feeding your soul, that's helping you live the life that you actually want to live, instead of this life that you think everybody else says you need to live or that you should live. I feel like we're going to say should probably a million times on this podcast.
A million. Let's get it all out.
Just get it all out. Yeah, I think there's so much wisdom in that, and really understanding what is it that I really want to get out of my career, and what is it that really makes me feel whole as a human about my career. So how do people shift their mindsets in this way? Like what changed for you in your career? How did you shift your mindset in this way?
Well, and it's funny, right? Like, do I have this all figured out? No, no. I
Appreciate the
still
honesty.
am challenged with the mindset that creeps in so often of like, Chrissy, like I know you said that you were going to sit here for the next 3 hours and allow your brain to wander, because that's how you actually create the deck that you need to create, is
Mm,
to just sit and be. But like, what happens is like, why aren't you on your computer? Like, why aren't you working?
mm.
Why aren't you, doing the things that you should be
Yeah.
doing? Right. So like, this is a constant practice. It is not something that just, you work on once and it goes away. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for a few years, and it's like a constant need to remind myself, like, you don't have to do things the way that you're programmed to do them. You don't have to, orient to all the shoulds. You can choose differently. And some days I'm really good at it, and sometimes I'm not.
Yeah.
But the mindset shift is really about habit and practicing thinking a new way. So,
Mm.
and that all starts with noticing. If we don't even notice we're on the dang train to begin with, the train to just like steamrolling nowhere, there's no way we can get off of it, because we're not even conscious to it. My co-founder of MindLevers, Kat, she relates this story that she heard in a graduation speech of, there's two young fish swimming in the sea, and an older fish swims by them and goes, "How's the water today, boys?" And the two younger fish keep swimming, and they're like, "What the hell is water?"
Ah,
They
oh
have
my
no
God.
clue. They don't know, right? They don't know they're in water. They're just in what they're in,
Yeah.
right? And so I think the number one step is like getting conscious, and in every moment you can possibly get in the course of a day. What's going on with me? What am I feeling about this?
Right.
Am I doing this because I want to be doing this? Am I doing this because I think I should be?
Mm.
Like, literally just sort of taking some pauses, taking some breaths, noticing. Once we can notice, then we can make a different choice.
Yeah.
If we're just on the train, if we're just in the water, no clue, we can't choose anything.
Yeah.
So it's all about noticing, to then be followed by choice, and then making a different choice over and over and over and over again.
I like the idea that it just starts with noticing. That feels less overwhelming, right? Just noticing what's happening for you in the moment. Oh wow, I'm shooting on myself. Like that's just such a easy first step to creating different outcomes.
Yeah.
So what would you say other people are having a hard time? What makes it hard for people to shift into this mindset of noticing or awareness? Um,
I like everything about our brains. Like, I mean, if we think about it, our brains are made to be lazy.
yeah. Mm.
And so our brains are going to do the same thing over and over and over again. I like to call some of that like canyons of negativity in your brain, right? So like, how's a canyon formed? It's water. It's water flowing through the same space over and over again, and it's creating a divot that gets deeper and deeper and deeper, right?
Yes.
So like, when we are going about our days, our brains are wired to walk down those same paths, to canoe down those same gorges in the Grand Canyon, right? Like, that's what the brain is going to do.
Yeah.
And it requires the consciousness and doing something differently to change that.
Mm.
And so like, our brains are wired for both the laziness, but they're also wired to change.
Mm.
And that's what's so freaking cool about them, is like, all we need to really do, we just need to get conscious that like, our brains are also able to do this other thing, which is change. And the minute we even, this is like the cool thing, the minute we even start thinking about doing something differently, we already start to create those new neural pathways that enable the change to happen. We don't even have to do anything differently.
Yeah.
It's why stuff like, if you're like trying to start working out, like, just put the clothes on the floor. You don't even need to get into them. Just like put them on the floor for the first week. Okay, maybe the second week, maybe like just put them on. You don't even have to go to the gym. Just put the clothes on,
Ooh,
right?
yeah.
All of a sudden, our brain is already like starting to change, because we are thinking a little bit differently. And so it just requires these like little steps.
Micro shifts. Yeah.
Micro steps.
Yeah. It's steps that build momentum. I love the analogy of the canyons, that we're kind of mindlessly canoeing down these canyons, just like do.
Ooh, this is pretty.
Yeah. Oh wow. Like, I didn't know this could exist. Yeah. I think that's such an interesting, I love that analogy. I think I've heard a different analogy too that's really similar. Like it's like well-worn paths. Like when you're in a prairie and someone walks a path and it wears away all the grass. I
Yep.
like that idea of like, if you just have that little shift, then like the little shoots of like, if you just choose not to walk that path a day or two, or you choose not to canoe down that river a day or two, like the silt will fill in the river, or the little shoots of grass will start to grow, and you don't have to like go down that path as much, or canoe down that river as much, and I think that,
And when you start a new path, right?
yeah.
When you start, it's harder because
Mm.
there's the grass. It's like, you got to trample through it. It's like getting all up in your biz, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
so it's harder when you're starting down the brand new path.
Yes.
But then eventually, if you start down that path, it becomes so worn as well. And then you start down a new path. Same thing happens.
Yeah, and I like that too, that awareness that like, okay, yeah, this is gonna be harder to start, and that's okay. Like that's how my brain is. Like that's how it's designed. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me. Like I know I sometimes tell myself a story when stuff is hard, like, oh, this isn't hard for anybody else. Like, why is it so hard for me?
Yeah.
Do you find that as a typical attitude for some people?
Oh, of course.
Mm.
Of course. It's so, I mean, I wrote a lot of my capstone thesis for my master's program on this sort of like alone on my own, I'm so special versus being like one of the bunch. And like realizing that so many of the core things that I've felt over the course of my life have been written about before for hundreds of years,
Mm.
that there's research on by like top researchers. Like these are very human things. I actually love Kristin Neff is a researcher who does self-compassion research. And she's got this mindful self-compassion workbook, and there's a series of exercises in it. And by the way, I use this a lot
Ooh.
when I'm feeling that like overwhelm or the like shooting all over myself or like the just like discomfort in trying something new and like feeling like I'm failing. Um, and one of the pieces of there's like a 5-step sort of self-compassion routine that you can use when you're like really in it. And one of the pieces is to remind yourself that you're not alone, that there are other
Mm.
people in the world that are likely feeling this exact same thing in this exact same moment.
Mhm. Mm.
And it really helps me remember, I think in the US especially, we are so conditioned, like individualistic. I need to figure everything out myself. Right?
Yeah.
That it's like, no, I am not alone.
Yeah.
There's actually people around. And reminder, I can actually reach out to some people and share with them
Yes.
that I'm feeling a certain way. And that can actually be very supportive to me,
Mhm.
in addition to doing my own like self-soothing. I'm okay. Everything's great. I'm having a moment of suffering is how she calls it. Like I'm
Mm.
having a moment of suffering. Just like be with it. It's okay to have that moment of suffering. And even just to acknowledge it kind of helps us move through it. And then when we look at like, oh, I'm not alone in this, that feels very like
Mm.
soothing in a way. And
Yeah.
there's other strategies she has too.
Yeah.
I use that a lot. It's one of my
I love
favorites.
that. I love that moment of suffering. And I think, yeah, like, a lot of people will be like, oh, it's too touchy-feely. But like for me, I was talking with someone the other day and they were saying, it's just a pause. It's just a pause saying like, oh, wow, this is hard. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this is hard and that's okay. And, and just acknowledging like, there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong in this moment. Like, this is just hard and that's okay. And I think I do well orienting towards self-compassion, and I know not everybody does. So like if self-compassion feels weird, just think about like the best coach that you've ever had that's like really taught you, and just think about them being like, oh, okay, wow, sounds like you're struggling, like, and that's okay,
Yeah.
what would you say to somebody who's like, ooh, self-compassion, gross, like I don't want to do that. Like,
Oh my God. This is like many of my coaching clients. By the way, I have a few coaching clients who like resist the self-compassion, like with all their might. Well, this is clearly a very worn pathway
mm,
and one of those canyons of it's not okay.
yeah.
I mean, I know that, you know, when I've seen my own parents, especially my mom, um, I see how much opportunity there is for her to show herself compassion. And the way that she kind of talks about it is like, no, you just got to get this stuff done. You
Mhm.
just got to go do the
Yeah.
thing. There's no time. There's no time to take care of yourself. You just go do the thing, right? Which has served her really, really well in a lot of ways. And it sort of taught me like, not okay, right? It's not okay to actually care for yourself and soothe yourself and take even that pause and moment.
Right.
So I would say, like, look, all the research shows that self-compassion is the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
The research shows it. So by someone choosing to say, gross, I don't want that, that is a choice you can make.
Right.
It's a choice. And it's probably just deeply unsettling and uncomfortable to start trying.
Yeah.
It was for me. I remember the first time, like, someone suggested, like, oh, there's research that, like, just putting your hand on your cheek, like, now it feels great. I was like, what? I don't even know how to, what is that? What? No, okay.
Yeah.
So, like, but now it feels so natural,
Yeah.
right? Or like sort of touching and like, oh, it's okay, Chrissy. Are you kidding? The first few times I tried saying that, I was like, this sounds gross.
Right.
Like, why would I ever talk to myself? But it, you know, now 3 years, 4 years have gone by. It's like, I'm an old hat at it.
Right.
Is that even a phrase? I don't know. But the point is like, it's your choice.
Yeah.
If you don't want to practice self-compassion, that is your choice. And the research shows that it's really supportive.
Right.
So try it.
Right.
Take it slow.
Yeah. And like somebody, I can't remember who it was, but somebody told me like if touching your face is too much or like rubbing your arms is too much, somebody told me that like if you like rub the palm of your hand, like, and like that's such an easy thing to do during a meeting. Like if you notice like, holy crap, I'm really stressed out, just like rubbing the palm of your hand, you know, like is such a great way to start that and it like you said, it creates like a down regulation in your brain. Neuroscience does not lie, you know?
It does not lie. The other one is especially like, look, like right now you can see my hand on my heart, right? All I need to do is like, you can't see on it. You can't see I'm doing anything right now, right?
Yeah, and you can't see that I'm doing this under here.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so much of our life, well, I don't know, so much of my life is on Zoom still. So I do a lot of this.
Yeah. I like that. I like this, that it's these really small shifts that can create, you know, new pathways that can open up possibilities where we can create the kind of job that we really want. And I don't know about for you, but for me, creating these new pathways or just noticing has helped me understand where I do flourish. Like knowing I flourish in relationship with people. I do not flourish in project management. I can do it, you know, I could probably do it better than the average person, but it's not where I thrive and it's not where I like shine. And so how would you, if somebody wants to find those places and spaces where they thrive and shine, how would you suggest that they do that?
Start getting conscious, start pausing, taking those breaths and celebrating wins.
Yes.
And celebrating when you do feel really good, like savoring the experiences. Yeah. There's a lot of research on savoring too, that shows that like it sort of it continues the joyful process when we savor. Yeah. But the thing is, so often we are moving from thing to thing to thing. So if you're in a question of like, what do I do with my life? What's my job? And all we're doing is like moving forward 1,000 miles a minute. Yeah. You're not actually taking time to be like, well, what was that for me? What did I really love about that project? Oh, I really loved the connection that I had with the other humans. Like you were just talking about, I'm the same way. Or, oh my God, I really loved the problem solving element and like the pulling all the pieces together and like working with the team to figure it out. Or I really loved just putting my head down and doing the writing, right? But if we're not taking a moment to pause and think about those things, we're just keeping moving ahead.
Yeah, I like that. I like the pausing to reflect on past careers and our past jobs or projects and what are the parts of those projects that made me most excited, that I got lost in, you know, like just that pause, you know, like you said, that consciousness is so important and such a fruitful place to be able to really start to understand what careers or what environments or people can I really thrive with and thrive in.
And I would say do it from the aggregate, like you just suggested, like take a look back on, okay, what did I really love about these things that I have done in the past? And then do it in the moment. What am I really enjoying like right now as I go through my day today? Yeah. What makes me feel really good?
Yeah. It's kind of how I came to this podcast. I realized I just love talking to people. I love understanding more about their story and learning from their story, and why don't I just do that? And I learn so much from people. I bet you other people could learn from these conversations too. Maybe I should just record them. I don't know, and it's
Love
so
it.
interesting. Like I thought it was going to be really hard, and it was in the beginning. It was hard to start this, but I've just had so much fun. It's just been fun. It's just been really fun to talk to people like yourself and learn, and I've grown so
Mm,
much, and it's an exciting time. So
love it.
we're kind of nearing the end of our time, and I could literally talk to you for hours, Chrissy. So
Me too.
so I'm probably gonna have to have you on again. That's what that means. I'll have to have you on again for
Great.
sure. But let's let's orient towards like the what now. What replaces our shoulds? And how has your life changed when you decided to
Mm,
stop orienting towards should and more towards being conscious?
yeah. I'm not going to say stop because it hasn't stopped, but I'm going to say I've gotten a lot better at tuning into me.
Mm,
The shoulds are the external and what I'm hearing from the world, what I'm taking from what people say, even if they haven't directly said it, what my parents have maybe indoctrinated with me that they didn't even realize they were indoctrinating, how they, share their feedback with me or things they think I should be doing, my friends, all of that. It's like noise, 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 noise. And it's like, no,
mm,
I've started to do a lot of meditating
mm.
really daily. And that's, a practice that I feel really helps me tune in. Sometimes I do some morning pages. It's Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way.
Oh.
It's a way of it's a book. It's a 12 kind of week book on getting back in touch with your inner artist and your inner creative.
Mm,
And so I'll do some morning pages. But a lot of it is just like, I'll do some visioning, right?
mm,
So if I have, I was like, my birthday this last year in December, I was like, I don't know what I should do. Should I go to New York? Should I go to do this other thing? Should I do this third thing? Blah, blah, blah. What should I do? I want to do it all, but I don't want to do it all. Who do I want to do it? I was like in this tizzy about it.
yeah.
And my coach literally was like, Christy, close your eyes and imagine yourself walking in New York with Joe. And
Mm,
immediately, 14 seconds that I actually took to just visualize one of the things, total clarity.
yeah.
I was like, no, I'm going to Denver with Joe. I'm going to New York by myself, and I'm doing something in Chicago with some girlfriends. It was
Yeah.
like, but I had to take a moment to pause and be like,
Mm,
what do I actually want?
yeah.
And that just requires practice. I was so unpracticed in that.
Yeah.
I literally lived my life 1,000 miles a minute. I'm an extrovert. All I did was spend time with other people.
Mm, mhm.
Well, how do you figure out what you want if you're constantly surrounding yourself with other
Yeah.
people? It's
Yeah.
so hard.
Oh, that's such a good point. Yeah, how do you figure that out? And I know there's some people out there that feel uncomfortable spending time alone with themselves or meditating. So find your own meditative activity. Like I know my partner really loves rollerblading, and it's a way that his mind can kind of like clear and it becomes a really meditative experience for him. I have another friend who really loves just doing like messing around with watercolors for 25 minutes a day, really not making anything in particular and special, but it becomes this meditative act where it kind of like makes the whole rest of the world fade away. And I think, sure, you don't need to sit cross-legged and, do 100 yoga
No,
stretches. Like just find a thing
no.
that helps you clear your head and stop and pause. And I think all of those.
Another big one for me is movement, just like
Mm,
putting on music and
yeah.
actually doing it even on Zoom with other people or finding a space that's not like a dance class. It's just like my body moving as it was made to move to the
Mm,
music that it's going. Like sometimes I'll do that on Zoom with people. Sometimes I'll go to like a 5 rhythms or an ecstatic dance. Um, is a huge one. Some people use like coloring books, those adult coloring books. My bestie loves those.
yes.
Um, I find the coloring in the lines, I feel that a little anxiety in here, but she was like, oh, it's like the best. I'm like, no, lines are like so constraining to
You're
me.
just like, ah.
I'm more of like the maybe watercolors,
Yeah,
like on a
yeah,
page with no lines.
love it.
So it's, yeah, finding the thing that feels meditative or that allows you to kind of go inside a little bit.
That's such great advice. And so thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to close up with some rapid fire questions. These are my favorite, and I'm excited to hear your answers to these. But the first one is, what is the most random job that you have ever had?
I love this question. It was actually in the pandemic. I appeared on an IKEA, like 10-minute IKEA commercial called like Tiny Friendsgiving, but I was
Oh,
paid to do this thing. Some of my friends were like the producer and the director, and I had a casting call. I mean, it was like a whole
cool.
thing, so random, so amazing. I loved it. I
Okay,
had so
I'm
much
gonna have
fun.
to put a link to that video in the show notes because that's so cool. You're gonna have to send that to me. I'll make sure that we have that in the show notes, and I'll comment it on LinkedIn on the LinkedIn Live if people want to take a look at it. Okay, so what is the worst career advice that you have ever gotten?
Oh, okay. It's like best and worst.
Okay.
Follow your passion.
Oh, follow your passion. Yeah.
So here's why it's the best, because it's like, yeah, duh.
Yeah.
But here's why it's the worst. I'm like a multi-passionate person.
Mm,
I love to do a lot of things, and I have never been fully clear on like what my passion
yeah.
is, that it actually felt very frustrating
Right.
when people would say that to me. I'm like, I want to do 1,000 things, but that's not like, I can't do 1,000
Yeah.
things. I'm excited about like so much. So for me, it's really been about orienting more towards like, who do I want to be in this life?
Right.
And like, how do I just start following what's innately in me,
Mm.
that then sort of, I think, turned into the passion. But just saying that word passion was like really
Oof.
overwhelming.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I mean, for me, passion changes, like
Yeah.
it changes all the time. Like, so that's hard. Yeah. Yeah. So I appreciate that you call it out as best and worst. So that's awesome. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you everyone who has joined us. And we had so much activity in the chat. I couldn't even keep up. I was going to try to
Oh,
mention some of the comments, but it was just like, yeah, so many great
fun.
comments from Clara, from Tiffany, from Trevor, and from Virginia, and a couple other users. So thank you everyone for joining us. And
Thanks for
yeah,
coming.
thank you. And if you want to listen to this episode, it goes live on all relevant podcasting channels on Monday. And don't forget to subscribe to the channels and like and share with friends if you think they would benefit from this information. I know that a lot of my friends would. And join me next week live at 8:30 a.m. Central Time for the Newly podcast, where you get more practical, no BS insights on how to grow yourself and grow your career. Thank you, everyone.